What's up, guys? It's me again, Christian Rodriguez, and um I wanted to talk about winning, right? And overextending. Now, winning, of course, that's what we want to do. So you're watching this channel, you're following my content because you want to win, right? You you want to make something of yourself, right? You want to win in all aspects of your life. That's why you're watching this channel. And that's why I'm in my self improvement journey. So I eventually am able to win in all aspects of my life, right? And that's why I'm creating content for you guys, right? But I also read a lot, right? And it's been a while since I've read this book, but I've once read the book, The Laws of Human Nature by Robert Greene, right? It's the same author of the 48 Laws of Power, and I thought this would be very good to talk about. So he made a law. It's about the law of grandiosity, right? And I remember the he uses an example, and he always has his stories before he gets to the point. But I actually do enjoy the stories, and one of the stories he talked about was Michael Eisner. I think, yeah, Michael Eisner, the former CEO of Disney, right? Um, he had a lot of early success, right? He he faced success. Everything worked well. Like Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Tokyo Disneyland. This guy was a hit. Like this guy looked like a genius. Like Disney was doing everything right, right? They were doing everything right. They were so successful under his reign in the beginning, right? They were doing everything right, right? Then then they started thinking, they're like, oh, I think it's our time to open a Disneyland in Europe, right? I think it's Disneyland Europa, Europe, whatever it is, right? They're like, that would be a great idea. And experts were recommending him, hey, Michael, let's open. We recommend that you open a park in Barcelona. Why? Because first of all, the Catalan culture, which is the local culture of Barcelona in Spain, that it's very family friendly. The weather is good all year round. Um, Also, the cost is cheaper. I think Barcelona would be the best destination for our next Disney park. And but the other option was Paris, right? Paris is further up north. Obviously, it's a French capital. It's a very big city, but it has worse weather. The French culture is not the same. It's not as open as the Catalan, the Spanish culture when it comes to opening like a an American style park in their country, right? But Eisner was like, but I've been winning. I've done well in Disney Tokyo. I've done well in Little Mermaid. I've done well with Aladdin. I've done well with all of these. So this is going to do well too. So he decided, let's just do Disneyland Paris because I know it's going to work, right? Well, they ended up proceeding with it, building Disneyland Paris, which is, hey, it's great, right? The only issue is it opens in 1992, right? Disneyland Paris, right? There was low attendance, right? There was a cultural backlash because he completely ignored the fact that the French didn't see it the way the Japanese embraced Disneyland, right? In Tokyo. He thought it was going to work the same way like that, right? And also there was success in when they opened Disneyland and Disney World in Florida, right? Which was after they had Disneyland in California. So he thought it was going to be like a cakewalk, something like that. Everyone was just going to love Disney and open it with open arms, right? No, it was not like that at all. What he failed to do was he failed to realize that the French culture is very different. The French saw it more as cultural imperialism by the Americans, right? He said Americans are trying to spread their culture into our French society, and the French are very proud of their culture, especially that I'm learning French, so I've been learning about their culture, and this makes a lot of sense to me, right? So they weren't exactly happy with this, and plus there's a lot of French bureaucracy and and the French labor that they were getting backlash for the French labor laws. It was something like that. I don't want to get too into it because I don't understand it completely. But when it comes to the park, right? The park lost nearly $1 billion. Yeah, like not a million, like a billion with a B, right? So Eisner, right? He blamed the French culture. He blamed France. He blamed everyone else but himself. In reality, it was him. It wasn't anyone. It was him, right? And eventually, Disney this planted a seed that led to Michael Eisner getting ousted from Disney, right? And I found this very useful to talk about because this is something that happens a lot, right? To people who have success, right? People who are winning in life, right? This is what happens to many people, right? And I've said in the past that you need to know how to control your emotions, right? And controlling your emotions is definitely something that you need to talk about, but it's not. I, when it comes to controlling your emotions, it also means when everything is going well as well. Not only when you're angry or sad. It's also when it's going really well. Because when it's going really well, you're more likely to have a boosted sense of ego. You might have an inflated. No, a better way. You might have an inflated ego, right? You might have some sort of inflated ego. And I remember there's a quote actually that Robert Greene says, right, in the book. He says, Success makes us believe that our instincts and talents are infallible. We begin to lose touch with reality and push our luck further and further until we crash, right? And it's true, right? We tend to overextend. We tend to overextend more than we tend to think that we're unstoppable. We tend to think that our earlier success is going to help us is going to keep going, right? And the thing is, maybe the early success that you had, maybe there was a combination of luck, maybe there was a combination of timing and circumstance that was working in your favor, right? But that's not always going to be the case, right? So you need to be aware of that, right? And the lesson that I really wanted to talk about from this video is that you cannot get too high on the highs, right? You can't because even if you have success in anything, could be business, right? It could be dating options, it could be whatever it is, right? It could even be fitness. You can't just have an inflated ego and think that everything is just going to turn to gold for you, because that's when things go wrong, right? There's literally a law in the 48 laws of power. It's know your mark. No, it's like know when to stop. Don't overextend. I might be getting it off a little bit, but it's something like that. Don't overextend. And what he's really saying is that because if you fuck up, right, you make like a bold move, and it's good to make bold moves, right? But if you overdo it, you might fuck up like really badly, right? And then this might cost people their jobs. This might cost people money. This this might like screw with other people's lives, or it might. And what it might do is people might want to take you down since you've already been winning. People might want to. That might be a reason for people to pull you back down, right? And you can't be arrogant. That's really what it is. You cannot be arrogant. If you even another example, right? If you look at World War II, right? I'm very into history. So if you look at Nazi Germany, right? In the beginning of World War II, they invaded Poland. They took over most of Europe. Most of mainland Europe, they had it conquered. They had it taken over, right? But Hitler made a massive mistake. He invaded the Eastern Front. He caused Operation Barbarossa, right? He executed Operation Barbarossa, which was the invasion of the Soviet Union in the East, right? And they were actually successful in the beginning, right? Because of his earlier success with taking down France, taking down most of Europe, right? And he thought that he was unstoppable, right? That he's a genius. that his generals don't know better than he does, right? And that's the thing. He started overruling his generals. He started like micromanaging them. He started like overruling them completely, like ignoring their advice, even if it was like very smart, reasonable advice, right? Because he was so driven on his own inflated ego and ideology that he wasn't thinking of the bigger picture. He wasn't thinking of, oh shoot, the Soviet Union is actually a lot stronger than we thought, and we don't address the Russian winters as well, right? He just expected the Soviet Union to fall. Obviously, they didn't fall, and that's what led to the fall of Nazi Germany, which was a great thing. But if you think about it, right, it was really about his inflated ego. Like based on if you look at history and you actually read into like how Adolf Hitler lost the war, it sounds like he just had a straight up inflated ego about it, and that's what caused him to lose the war, right? And not just lose the war, but the entire government was dismantled. He's considered that word Hitler is known around the world as evil, right? Completely evil, and he will be forever remembered for that. And I and it's also partially because of his arrogance. So he definitely will be remembered for 1,000 years. Just he won't be in power for 1,000 years or whatever he created, right? And I just want you guys to know that before you start like doing something, right? You go for a business. I'm going to use business for example because it's a very good way of thinking about it, right? When you think of you go for a business, right? And say you start reaching success. Don't think that you're unstoppable. Don't think that maybe you had coaches, maybe you had a mentor or like a friend or an ally who helped you get up there. Don't think that you're made out of gold and it was super easy for you, because that could be the beginning of your downfall, right? And the person that helped you might think that you're an arrogant bastard and they might not want to help you in the future. They might see you as, oh, this guy, I'm not going to help him because he's not listening to me. Now he's ignoring. Now he thinks he's smarter than me. So that's really what I want to get through with you. And it doesn't have to be in a bigger scale, right? With business, it could also be with like professional athletes do this all the time. Like famous people do this all the time. I have to give famous people example because I can't think of like some average Joe, because it's yeah, like we if it happened in average Joe, it's not out there in history for me to like talk about it and give you an example of it. But it happens in smaller scales too. It could be if you're doing really good at if you're really doing really well at a sales job. Actually, you know what? That's perfect. Say you have a sales job, you're doing really good. You're leading the office. You're gifted into sales, right? And you're the head in the sales office. Everyone asks you for advice. You have an inflated ego because you're just naturally good at sales, right? And then maybe one day you just assume everything you do is turns to gold. Then one of the women in the office, you decide to make a move on her. Obviously, you creep her out. She goes to the boss. The boss fires you. That's an example of it. That's it in a smaller scale, and it can happen in all aspects of life. But I just thought this would be really useful because you need to know after you're winning, you need to like almost like humble yourself. You need to think, okay, what can I do? Right? What should I feel great right now, but what can go wrong, right? You have to like almost like think like, okay, now I have to be smart with what I do, because what I did worked, but is it always going to work? You have to question it, right? And I'm gonna leave it at that because I just wanted to get this point across. I found this very interesting from what I've learned, and I've seen it also with big celebrities like Kanye, right? Like with his anti-Semitic remark, because he thought he was untouchable, and he ended up losing. He ended up getting ousted from Adidas, his partnership with Adidas for Yeezys, right? And I just want you guys to know that this stuff happens all the time, right? And you really gotta like when you start winning, you really have to just check your ego. That's really what it is. You have to check your ego, right? Because we all have egos, but if you have an inflated ego, it it's not good. It's not good. An inflated ego is never good, right? You might piss people off. You might piss off the people that you might need their help in the future, right? When you're on your downfall, they might smile on your downfall. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm gonna keep creating more videos like this and things that I learn. Thank you guys so much and take care.